action cameras are in a weird category in the photography space, because if you're a photographer, having an action camera in your kit is not really a necessity. But if you're a specific kind of photographer who likes to film themselves, do POV videos, or just likes to have a video camera around that doesn't add a lot of bulk to the kit, it is kind of an essential part of that. So these are the most popular action cameras right now. And even though they're all in the same category, I feel like they're very different cameras. So I want to talk about what each camera brings to the table and why you should pick one over the other for your kit. Starting with the Insta360 Go 3, the thing I loved the most about this camera was the design, and it's just such a clean design, and it's so different from the rest of them. Even though it looks like a traditional action camera, it has a few tricks up its sleeve. So the difference between this camera and the other cameras is that it does have like a flip screen. So if you're into that, that's something that you really like to see. The other cameras do have a screen in the front, but the thing I like the most about this, it's like a full-size screen. And if you want to vlog, which is not something I do most of the time, but if I'm getting video with my family and my kid and I want to be in the video, it's really easy to frame this way because you can see a full frame view of what it looks like. So that's something that I liked a lot when I bought this camera. And the screen is very responsive. It's it's one of the most responsive screens that I've seen. So that's something that was really important to me, apart from features, because this camera is not 4K, it's 2.7K. So if you're really into resolution, maybe that'll be a big drawback for you. But I think what it does lacks in the video department, it really improves on with the design language on this camera. So as you can see, the screen flips up, but if you also would like to have this camera get even smaller, you can actually take the camera right off of this and you can still use this as a viewfinder. So if you want to put this anywhere else, you can still film yourself and the screen will see what you're seeing, which is something that I haven't seen before in any camera. And that's something I would like to see in other action cameras kind of implement. What I also like about the Action Go 3 is how easy it is to put them in different mounts. So this camera comes with a bunch of different mounts, and it's really easy to put it on the camera because it is magnetized. So once it's on there, it's really on there. The magnets are really strong in this camera. And what I like about it is it also has this sticky part on the bottom of this mount. So you can put this on a window, mount it on different surfaces if you want to get different perspectives. I use this all the time when I'm in the backyard with my son and I want to just stick this camera somewhere while we play in the backyard. So it comes really in handy if you want to use it for different purposes. But you can also take this apart over here, and you can also screw in a 1/4 inch on here. So if you're going to put it on a tripod or anything like that, you can do that right from this little mount. So another one of these accessories is this hat mount. I don't use it very much. I used it more for like a bit for one of my videos. Other than that, this is really cool to put the actual little pill shape of the camera into this mount on your camera. So it goes in there very easily. So you can take this out like you would, and it goes right into this mount. And then you can put this on your hat if you want to get different perspectives, or if you want to get a POV perspective right from your hat. It's really nice to have this as well. So the last accessory it comes with is this little pendant, which is the accessory I use the most. And if you watched my latest POV video, this is basically what I used for a 1/4 of it, because I used all of these cameras for that video. But it's the most useful mount for me because it's so small. So with this pendant, you just put it around your neck, and the little pill portion of the camera magnetizes right to it. So you can put this under your shirt, under your clothes, anything that you're wearing, and it'll magnetize right on it. And it's really strong. So I've never felt like it was ever gonna fall off. So especially if you wear lighter clothing, you can wear this. People don't really look at you, which is something that I'm very self-conscious of whenever I'm wearing my GoPros or the Insta, one of the bigger cameras. But this camera is so small that whenever I wear it, people don't usually look at me whenever I'm out shooting POV videos. And it's something I really like because it really allows me to be hands-free for whatever activity I'm doing. If I'm doing a POV video, or if I'm just getting video of my kid running around, this has become one of the most essential parts of my kit. So one of the drawbacks of this camera is the fact that it's not really waterproof to an extent. Like if you have a GoPro Hero 11, this camera is waterproof, but if you want this camera, submerge this camera under the water, you have to take it off of this the enclosure. So this part of the camera is waterproof, that you can dunk it and submerge it. But if that's something that's really important to you, I wouldn't suggest you going out in the rain or anything like that with this whole thing. But if you are going in the rain or going swimming or in the water or anything like that, taking underwater photos, you would have to use this by itself and not the attached housing. Another drawback of this camera is that the storage is internal, so you can't plug an SD card in here. You have to get the footage out of your camera via USB-C. And when you buy the camera, you have to predetermine how much storage you want. So that kind of limits how much footage you can get if you're out for a couple of days and you have nowhere to store it. So you have to plan ahead which capacity you want in your camera. The biggest drawback of this camera is the fact that it shoots up to 2.7K and not 4K or 5K like the other cameras. So if you're thinking of getting a camera for the image quality, this is not the camera for you. But if you're interested in the flippy screen or the fact that you can take this out of the actual camera, making things relatively small and keeping things in a small package, this camera might be the perfect camera for you. Up next is the GoPro Hero 11, and this is the camera that most people are familiar with if you're shooting anything for like POV or street photography. A lot of people like to use this camera because it's pretty reliable, especially in the way that people like to shoot. So as you can see, it is like a traditional design of the GoPro. These cameras don't really change all that much. So the design is not something that I am particularly drawn to, but it's something that I know pretty well because I've had a few GoPros in the past. And the thing I like the most about the GoPro Hero 11, it's the image quality. So I think out of all the cameras that I'm showing right now, this is my favorite in terms of the image. And even though both of these cameras are very similar in image quality, the way that this camera renders colors, even for a flat color for video, it's still, I think it's the easiest one to color grade, and it shoots in 10-bit. So you get a lot of latitude if you're trying to color grade your footage, which is why I think a lot of people tend to choose GoPro over the competition for street photography or POV videos, because you can match the aesthetic that you want. So if you're shooting for a certain look, you can have that latitude to look however you want it to look. The GoPro Hero 11 has this prong design for their mount, so it's not as convenient as the Insta360 Go 3, but it is familiar. Since I've had GoPros in the past, I have a bunch of these mounts, starting with this hot shoe mount that I mount right onto my camera. So it's really easy to mount on your camera if you like to do that. But if you like to shoot with it like on a backpack or on a harness or anything like that, there's tons of accessories for that. So putting this on different mounts helps a lot. So one of the mounts I like to use these cameras with is the Peak Design capture clip. And this is a pretty new addition to my own kit. And so far I really like it. It attaches to all these different backpacks that I have. And so that's my preferred way of mounting this camera. If you are familiar with GoPros, I think just having a GoPro around is really essential because these are pretty reliable. I know that if you're shooting for a long time, these can overheat. For my use case, or for people who are doing street photography or anything like that, small shorts, I don't think it's really something that you should be worried about, because I think like a lot of these videos, they blow things out of proportion, especially for my use case. So if you're using this for action sports or long periods, definitely overheating is a big issue. But you're using it like I am for like short bursts, or if you're just using it for street photography videos, I think it's not really something that you should be worried about too much. One of the drawbacks of this camera is if you want to have any form of external audio, you can't do that unless you add a media mod. So it does add a little bit of bulk to the camera. So you can get the media mod, which includes a couple of ports like USB-C, but the big drawback of this is that it adds a lot of bulk to the camera. So I'll show you what this camera looks like with the media mod attached. So, you know, it's not a long process to get this attached to this, but it does add quite a bit of bulk. So as you can see, it really makes this camera a lot bigger. So one of the reasons why it makes it a lot bigger is because it does have a little bit of a better microphone on the camera. It's not something I really like to use. It doesn't sound great to me, but if you want to use this for getting external audio with like the DJI microphone, you can do that. But mounting it is kind of a pain. Another thing I don't particularly love about the GoPro cameras is the touchscreen. It's pretty laggy in terms of the other screen. So even the Insta360 Go 3 has a nicer touchscreen interface. So this, you know, it's not terrible, but it's not as responsive as I would like it to be. So like if you get into different modes, it can be a little bit cumbersome getting around the interface, which I know GoPro kind of goes around by just having all your settings pretty close by. So like having your different settings run here in the front really helps out a lot. So you can have different presets, but it's not something I particularly love about this camera. It's not really that big of a screen, and it's also not the brightest. So if you're looking for a camera that has a nice screen, I feel like GoPro is kind of overdue for a better screen on both sides. As you can see, the screen in the front is pretty small too, and you can't really do anything about it. It's just like a preview screen. So if that's something that kind of is something that's important to you, the GoPro doesn't have as good of a screen as the Go 3 or the Action 4. One thing I really love about the GoPro Hero 11 is the stabilization. So this camera has a square sensor, so whenever you're shooting and you have this locked off, like you can turn it around all the way around and the footage will still be leveled, which is insane to me, because it's something that I have tried multiple times when I'm out shooting, and it still boggles my mind that it does that, because whenever I mount this camera on a backpack or anything like that, it's not always 100% straight. So putting this on a mount and just leaving it, I know that I'm gonna get a perfectly leveled shot. So it's something I don't really have to worry about. Another drawback of this camera versus the competition is the battery life. It's not amazing. I feel like it's the worst out of the three, but you can get a full day of shooting with 2 batteries if you're shooting for like a couple hours. But if you want one single battery to do it all, you're gonna have to bring extra batteries or charges while you're on the go. So this last camera is the Action 4 and is the newest of the bunch. So this camera has a ton of different features and also addresses some of the issues I had with all the other cameras. So if you're someone who loves the latest and greatest, you like to shoot in 4K 60, anything like that, this is the camera for you. But one of the things I love the most about this camera is the fact that you can plug a recorder right into it. So I have, what you can do here is you can open up this door right away and take the battery door out. And if you have something like a DJI microphone, which I'm using to record this video, you can plug it right into this and still get great audio via your camera. So if you want to do any talking head stuff, or if you want to narrate your POV videos, anything like that, if you want to wear an external microphone, you can do that. And it's one of the best things about this camera. Like if you want to use the GoPro Hero 11, you have to have the media mod and you have to have a cable for it, but this one you can just put right into USB-C microphone and you're good to go. For instance, if you want to use this camera as a talking headshot in your car and there's a lot of noise around, you can use an external microphone to cut down on the noise and still have a pretty interesting shot. Another thing I really love about this camera is how responsive the touchscreen is. If you compare it to like the GoPro, it's so much faster to navigate through different things. You know, the menu systems are very similar, but it's super responsive to go between different things. If you want to pull down this menu here, go into your different resolutions, or your image adjustment, anything like that, you can do that right from the back of the screen here. So what I love about this camera is not just the camera itself, but some of the accessories you can get with it. So DJI actually makes this really awesome case for the batteries. So if you're someone who shoots a lot, this case really comes in clutch. So it's a battery case. You can fit 3 batteries in here, but it also tells you which batteries are charged and which one needs a charge. So there's 3 batteries I have with this camera right now. One that's actually in the camera. So when I put this in the camera or in the charging case, it'll tell me that this one needs to be charged, and you can charge all 3 of them via USB-C, which is, you know, very universal, and it's something that we all carry on a daily basis. So if you need to charge your batteries all at once, you can do that right from the case. So everything's neatly packed into a nice little package. The biggest advantage of this camera versus the GoPro Hero 11 or the Insta360 Go 3 is that you get better low light performance because of the bigger sensor of this camera. So if you're shooting a lot at night, or if you want to, you know, you're not going to be able to get nighttime shots like if you're shooting like an A7S III, but if you're shooting on GoPros or action cameras regularly, the advantage is very noticeable right off the bat. So you get a little bit less noise and a way better usable image. This camera also has accessories which kind of combine both the Insta360 Go 3 system and the GoPro Hero 11 system, which is these magnets that you can put different accessories to. So by putting this one right on it, you can actually use all of your GoPro accessories right onto this camera. And if you want to put other accessories on it, you can do it right with magnets. And one thing I don't love about this camera is the image quality. Like the image quality on this camera is great, but the image that comes out of this camera is something that I have to tweak a lot in order to get to a place that I like. So it shoots in 10-bit color, so I have a lot of latitude to be able to color grade it in a way that I like to, but the image that comes right out of the camera, it's not something that I particularly enjoy. So it takes a lot of time for me to actually color grade this. So the time that I'm using up to tweak this, it's not time that I would like to spend color grading the footage. So I hope this video helps everyone who's looking into these cameras and what they can add to their kit. So, but in terms of my own kit, based on just the features and everything on these cameras, the Insta360 Go 3 is the one I picked the most and the one that I use the most in my own personal work, just because it's so easy to use. It's really fun to use, even though the image is not as good as the GoPro Hero 11 or has as many features or video features as the Action 4. This is just the camera that I use the most because of, you know, the screen and how modular it is. So if that's important to you or you're like me, this is the perfect camera for that. But if you're looking for something with an image quality and that's just has a really pleasing image right off the bat, this is the camera for you. But if you're looking for video features and you just like all the bells and whistles, the Action 4 is the best camera for you. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. If you have any questions on any of these cameras, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.